Now, recently, President Trump gave a speech to the Boy Scouts of America. Now, look, that in itself, not entirely unusual. In fact, it's kind of a tradition that different presidents adhere to. I mean, look, every president goes and gives a speech. And I got to point out that, yes, even Obama was there. Because that's going to factor into what I'm going to show you next. Now, what is unusual about Donald Trump's speech is that he took something that is inherently not supposed to be political, and he made it incredibly political. In fact, CNN put together a bunch of clips from that event, and I want to show you that right now. Let's take a look.
Who the hell wants to speak about politics when I'm in front of the Boy Scouts, right? The Scouts believe in putting America first. You know, I go to Washington and I see all these politicians and I see the swamp, and it's not a good place. In fact, today I said we ought to change it from the word swamp to the word cesspool, or perhaps to the word sewer, but it's not good. By the way, just a question. Did President Obama ever come to a jamboree? Boy Scout values are American values, and great Boy Scouts become great, great Americans. As the Scout law says, a Scout is trustworthy, loyal. We could use some more loyalty, I will tell you that. Do you remember that incredible night with the maps? And the Republicans are red, and the Democrats are blue, and that map was so red, it was unbelievable, and they didn't know what to say. And hopefully, he's going to get the votes tomorrow to start our path toward killing this horrible thing known as Obamacare that's really hurting us. So, he better get them. Oh, he better. Otherwise, I'll say, Tom, you're fired.
Okay. So, look, that was very political. He was like, Obamacare, disaster, it's hurting everybody. You're not there to give a campaign speech, dude. So, look, okay, some of you might look at this and be like, okay, whatever, dude. What does it matter? He's giving a political speech. Well, it turns out a lot of the parents of those kids at the jamboree, because again, this was not a campaign speech. They didn't go out to see Donald Trump. What they were doing is that they were having their annual jamboree, and Donald Trump, and look, a lot of presidents, they go and speak there. And usually their speeches are inspirational, like, you know, think of something inspirational. I really can't. I'm not an inspirational person. Let's just put that. Okay. But when you're there, you're supposed to say something inspirational. You're supposed to leave politics and bullshit out of it. Instead, he's like, Obamacare. Did you see how much I won? Oh, that red. Oh, so much red. It was tremendous. Well, it turns out that a lot of parents didn't sign up for that. They're like, they were pissed. And, of course, they expected the Boy Scouts, the leader of the Boy Scouts, to speak out because, again, these are kids, they're 10 to 18-year-olds, and he's there treating this like it's a campaign speech with all of his fans. Okay. Now, interestingly enough, you know how conservatives tend to rail against schools for trying to indoctrinate children? What do you think that campaign speech was about? Just saying. If, for example, he got the crowd to boo President Obama. Did he ever go to a jamboree? No. Actually, that's false. He was actually there in 2010. But that's a good example of indoctrination. He literally lied to the crowd. So a lot of parents noticed that. They were pissed. Okay. Now, again, the question is, they were the parents were putting a lot of pressure on the Boy Scouts and the Facebook page, lots of angry messages, lots of angry tweets. So why didn't the president speak out? The president of the Boy Scouts. Well, first, who is the president of the Boy Scouts? Well, it's a man named Randall Stephenson. Now, you might not have heard of him, but I'm fairly certain you've heard of the company that he runs. See, in addition to running the Boy Scouts, he's also the chairman of AT&T. Now, look. He's not the first CEO to have run the Boy Scouts. So that's not unusual. Okay, business figures do come in. Stephen Randall himself came in 2016. So again, not super unusual. But here's where it gets a little complicated. For that, I go to the Washington Post. They explain that Stevenson's company, AT&T, is currently facing a Justice Department antitrust review on its proposed $85 billion merger with Time Warner. So now that's interesting because there seems to be a bit of a conflict of interest here. Now, on the one hand, people have been blowing up the BSA's Facebook page with comments threatening to to pull out their children and to end donations, right? To no longer donate to the organization unless the group denounces that speech, which they say was not keeping with the group's values of kindness and courtesy, right? Now, what's funny is that you actually expect kindness and courtesy from Trump. That's cute. But anyway, in a recent statement, the BSA had addressed it by saying, hey, we're nonpartisan, and that the invitation for the president to visit is a longstanding tradition. It's tradition. It's not an endorsement. We can't control what he says. Yeah, but you can denounce it when it gets overly political. That's the whole problem. It got overly political, and that wasn't the whole point of the speech. There wasn't the whole point to go there and visit the Jamboree. Again, it was to be inspirational. Obama could do an inspiration. Like, you didn't see Obama doing this speech. And that's why nobody remembers this, by the way. When he went to the Jamboree, he wasn't like, oh, man, that McCain, let me tell you what. I lit him up. Let me tell you, that map was all blue. It was tremendous. No, he didn't do that. He didn't push his policies. No, he was doing an inspirational speech, okay? About how, we're all American and American values, Boy Scout values, and he was a Boy Scout. Was Donald Trump a Boy Scout? No, absolutely not. So, those parents, of course, they want an apology for letting one of the few things left in America that wasn't political becoming political. Okay, that became political. But unfortunately, at least for us, Stevenson has about 85 billion reasons not to apologize. So here's another interesting part of the story, getting into the deal. Now, AT&T, as I said, they want to merge with Time Warner. Now, Time Warner owns CNN. And President Trump, he happens to hate CNN. You see where this is going? He also hates CNN President Jeff Zucker. In fact, he claimed on the campaign trail that he would stop the deal between AT&T and Time Warner because it concentrates too much power in the hands of a few. Now, look, I actually agree with that statement 100%. I'm not in favor of the deal personally. I'm like, no, I don't want this deal. I don't want to have more media consolidation. That's generally a bad thing. So, look, I would rule against this deal. Like, if I were president for a day, and that would be fucked up, I would do some great things. Tremendous things. Medicare for all, done. Outlawing this deal, done. No media consolidation. I'm against that. Now, and look, media consolidation is bad in several different ways. It destroys competition. And it's also, since our media is for profit, I think that has a negative effect on the population. Because when you're doing news for money and for access and for advertisers, generally it turns out poorly when it comes to actual information about what's going on. Okay. And I think that media consolidation and the way our media structure is today is partly the reason for Donald Trump being there. So basically, I'm trying to explain that progressives, generally, we're against this deal for the right reasons. Donald Trump is not. He's actually bullshitting in order to get what he wants. And what he wants is Jeff Zucker's head on a pike. That's what he wants. According to an earlier report in the New York Times back in June, White House advisors had even reportedly considered using their influence on the deal as leverage against CNN. So punishing a political enemy. Yeah, we don't like CNN. We don't like what they're saying about us. We don't like Jeff Zucker. So, oh, look at that. Oh, you seem to have a merger deal going through that I could approve or deny. You know, if you give me what I want, if you play ball, we might let that go through. We're going to use that as leverage, okay? Now, one advisor during that New York Times story had told him that the administration would not support the merger, so this is their terms, if CNN president Zucker remains CNN president. Now, look, first of all, I want to say that this thing actually does happen more than Trump, okay? It happened before Trump. It'll probably happen after Trump. The White House will use this political pressure to approve or disapprove mergers. They'll put pressure in order to get something that they want out of the deal. It's not unsurprising that this happens. But see, Trump's unsophisticated. You're supposed to actually do it behind the scenes if you're going to do it at all, which you shouldn't. But I'm saying that as the normal order of business and their corruption, you're supposed to be smart enough to hide your corruption. Donald Trump is not smart enough to hide his corruption. He's out in the open with it. They're out in the open with it. Like, yeah, we're going to use it as leverage. What? There are no rules anymore. We broke all the rules. So now it's just us and what we want is Zucker removed. When you do that, you play ball, then you're going to get your merger. And if you suck up to me, you might get your merger. So, again, this is not a review to make sure that the power is not concentrated in the hands of a few. It's a message. Get on board. And we will let you make billions of dollars. Now, Stevenson does not want to end up like Jeff Zucker. Okay? He wants this deal badly. $85 billion. I wouldn't blame him for wanting this deal. And he's been reportedly lobbying Trump heavily in order to try and get this deal. Now, he actually even went to Trump Tower to try to butter him up by attending a White House meeting in technology in June, where he was seated next to Donald Trump, who called him or who praised him for having an excellent management style. Well, let me tell you about Trump, okay? If you're rich and you're on his side, if you suck up to him, he's going to think that you're great. That's his people. Okay, he doesn't like poor people. He thinks that, no, if you're poor, you're not a good person. You fucked up. Okay, I don't want anything to do with you. You're not a good person. If you're rich, well, that means you're fantastic. I want to hang around you. Okay, now, if you're rich, but you're against him, well, it's different. He's going to go after you. He's going to go after you like Jeff Bezos or Jeff Zucker. Seems like he is allied against Jeffs. Very interesting. Kind of ironic. But he's going to make life very difficult for you. Exactly what he's trying to do in this merger. Now, look, that almost makes him sound like a mobster, but again, it's not like he hasn't been accused of having those ties either. But basically, if you want your deal approved, you shut your mouth on issues like this. You do not criticize Donald Trump. So that puts Stevenson in a very difficult and awkward position. Okay? Shut your mouth. Don't criticize the president, or else. And with so much money on the line, it's no wonder that the Boy Scouts did exactly that. They're not calling Trump out on his ridiculous, nakedly partisan speech. And again, it's all about the money. It's always been about the money, and it will always be about the money. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.